In 1955, the world's most famous genius died quietly in a hospital in Princeton, New Jersey. Albert Einstein, the man who changed the way we see time, space, and the universe itself, passed away at the age of 76. But what happened next? That's where things get weird. Because just hours after his death, Einstein's brain was, without permission, removed, photographed, sliced into hundreds of pieces and stored in jars. And for decades after that, it vanished. Not only that, at one point, the U.S. government allegedly tried to ban the brain from crossing state lines. Yes, you heard that right. Einstein's brain was basically treated like illegal contraband. How does something like this happen? Let's unravel one of the strangest and most controversial chapters in scientific and human history. First, let's set the stage. April 18th, 1955. Albert Einstein dies of an abdominal aneurysm. His wishes are clear: cremate the body, scatter the ashes, and leave no shrine or spectacle behind. He wanted no fuss, no museums, no cult following. But Dr. Thomas Harvey, the pathologist on duty, had other ideas. While conducting the autopsy, Harvey removed Einstein's brain without asking the family. He then took it home, photographed it, cut it into over 240 pieces, and preserved it in formaldehyde. Later, he moved it into mason jars filled with alcohol. Einstein's family was furious, especially his son, Hans Albert. But Harvey insisted it was for science. He claimed that studying Einstein's brain might unlock the secrets of genius. The family eventually relented under one condition: the research had to be purely scientific and never exploited for personal gain. Spoiler, it didn't go that way. For years, no one really knew where the brain was. Harvey lost his job, got divorced, and drifted from place to place. But he never let the brain out of his sight. He stored it in a beer cooler, sometimes in a cider box, and at one point it lived in a basement in Kansas. No joke. Scientists who wanted to study it had to track him down and ask nicely. Some did. Most didn't know where to look. By the 1970s, the legend of the missing brain had taken on a life of its own. It wasn't until 1978, over 2 decades later, that a journalist named Stephen Levy found Harvey and confirmed the brain was real, still intact, and still floating in jars. And that's when the story takes another twist. Harvey started mailing brain slices, actual slivers of Einstein's brain, to researchers across the country, like postcards, except these postcards came with a return address and 2 grams of cerebral cortex. And here's where it gets tricky for the U.S. government. Transporting human remains, especially celebrity remains, across state lines or international borders raised major red flags. Officials were concerned this would turn Einstein's brain into a black market curiosity, or worse, a symbol to be abused or fetishized. It might end up in private collections, auction houses, or in some morbid roadside museum. There were even reports that customs officers were told to confiscate any Einstein tissue if it showed up in the mail. It sounds absurd, but from a legal and ethical standpoint, this was a nightmare. Because whose brain was it now? The family's, the hospitals, the nation's? Or was it still Einstein's? Despite the drama, researchers did eventually study some of the tissue. One 1999 study claimed that Einstein's parietal lobes, linked to spatial reasoning and mathematical ability, were unusually shaped. Another study said his brain had more glial cells, which support neuron function, than average. But here's the catch. The sample size was too small, and because the brain had been preserved so unorthodoxly, most scientists say we can't draw any serious conclusions. Translation? We still don't know what made Einstein Einstein. Was it his biology, his upbringing, his relentless curiosity? Probably a mix of all three, and slicing up a genius-ass brain hasn't yet brought us much closer to creating more geniuses. In the 2000s, some of the remaining brain slices ended up in museums, including the Mutter Museum in Philadelphia, but others remain unaccounted for, floating in forgotten boxes, maybe lost forever. Dr. Harvey died in 2007. On his deathbed, he insisted he never profited from the brain, and he truly believed he was preserving it for the good of science. But that's the uncomfortable part of this story. What began as curiosity turned into obsession, secrecy, and controversy. A man who revolutionized physics was reduced to a specimen in a jar. It raises a deep question. Where do we draw the line between science and respect? Einstein once said, "The value of a man resides in what he gives, not in what he is capable of receiving." He gave the world relativity, quantum theory, and a new way to see the cosmos. But in death, his body was treated as a treasure map, as if by studying his remains, we might find the buried X that marks the genius spot. But maybe that's the irony. Einstein's real brilliance wasn't in his brain tissue, it was in his ideas. Ideas you can't preserve in jars or slice into slides. And maybe that's the secret we should have paid more attention to all along. If this story blew your mind, or at least made you think twice about mailing body parts, don't forget to hit subscribe for more weird, wild, and wonderful stories from history, science, and the strange corners of truth. And drop a comment below. Should Einstein's brain have been studied or simply left to rest?